Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about for loops with break and continue. Both break and continue are Python keywords. The break stops the loop immediately and moves on with the program. So I like to think about this as we are breaking out of the loop and moving on with whatever else that we have coded. On the other hand, continue only skips the code inside of the loop for the current iteration and moves on to the next item. So I like to think about this as we are only skipping the current item and then we will still continue with the loop. Generally, both of these keywords are paired with an if statement. Here we have a small example. We have a list of students. We put this list into a loop and then we just do a little print function call that says that we are processing the student. Here we have the same code except for these two lines. Our conditional statement is if the current student is equal to Charlie, continue. And then you'll notice that this print statement is outside of the if block. If we run this, you'll notice that Charlie is nowhere in the results. As soon as student had a value of Charlie, we continued, which again means that we skip over the rest of the instructions inside the loop and we go to the next item, which would be David. Here, we're using the break keyword. Everything is identical now except for continue became break. If we run this, you'll notice that the only two students that were processed were Alice and Bob. As soon as we hit Charlie, we broke out of the loop and all of the rest of the students were skipped. Again, this is a very simple example. We're going to take a look at a slightly more complicated example next. To set up this example, let's think about calculating the average of some test scores. We have a bunch of different test scores. Sum is a built-in function in Python that will take any iterable, and as long as each item is a number, it will just add them all up. And then len is something that we've seen before. It just calculates the number of items in the list. When we run this code, we can see that the average is 77.1. However, in some schools, at least in the United States, there's a common practice of dropping the lowest scores. So sometimes people refer to this as an adjusted average, where the professor or the teacher would go through and would say, oh, hey, this student has 2 scores of 60. Those are the lowest scores of all the tests. Let's drop those low scores and then recalculate the average. First of all, we use the built-in min function, which just takes in any iterable and it will find the lowest value. We are using scores.count. .count is just a list method that will go through the list and count how many times this item is in there. So min scores is a value of 60. So the count of min score is 2. Then we do the length of the original list, subtract the 2, and the count of the adjusted scores is 8. Next, we have one of those original recipes that we talked about in the list comprehension video. We are initializing a variable to 0. We're looping over the scores list, but this time we're adding in a continue conditional. We say if the score is equal to the minimum score. In other words, if the current score that we're on in the list is the minimum score, continue. Otherwise, this will not get executed and we take the total score current value, we add the score that we're on, and we reassign that into the total score label. Then we calculate the average. If we run this code, you'll see that we have an adjusted average of 81.375, which is higher than the previous one. So it's okay if you don't understand every single thing here. We've added in a couple extra function calls and a list method that we've never discussed before. But really the big takeaway is these keywords of break and continue are really helpful. Good luck on today's bite.